Welcome back, everyone. So, I have a question for you guys, and I really want you to think hard about the answer here. Where do demons come from? It's not a trick question. Where do demons come from? Evil spirits. Where do they come from? If you know the Book of Genesis, if you know the Book of Enoch, you know the answer. Evil spirits weren't created by God, right? They didn't just fall from the sky, right? Where did they come from? The Book of Enoch tells us that during the days of Jared, a group of angels, the Watchers, 200 of them, descended to the summit of Mount Hermon, and they took for themselves wives. Pay close attention, because this is going to be a bit eye-opening for you if you haven't thought about it before. Those 200 Watchers took for themselves wives, and they begot children who were mighty men of old, men of renown, the Nephilim. So when the Nephilim died, or when they were killed, because they were hybrids, because they did not belong to heaven or earth, they became disembodied spirits that would be known as evil or wicked spirits or demons. So evil spirits are the children of fallen angels, right? Who else's children are they? That's right. Human women. Folks, demons come from us. Human women gave birth to them. Human women gave birth to the Nephilim. The fallen angels didn't give birth to the Nephilim. They impregnated human women, and human women gave birth to the Nephilim. This is one of the reasons why evil spirits live next to and inside humans. Because they were once human. Well, part human. Anyway, that's not really what I want to talk about today, but think of it as a segue into the main topic here. So, how many of you watched the space launch last week? You know, the rocket ship launch to the moon and back. How many of you observed that launch? If you did you know that what you observed was not just a space launch, folks? It was a reenactment. Most people watched that space launch and all they saw was a rocket ship being launched into the sky. But there was a story being retold, almost like a theater play. An ancient story was being told. But understand, this wasn't a story that was being retold to us. It was being told to the ones who allowed that craft to be launched in the first place. You know, the ancient Greeks and Romans had terms for divine permission checking. The auspices and the augury, the act of asking the gods for permission through rituals and signs, all of that falls under the umbrella of divination. So, before we talk about this recent space launch, I want to tell you a story. It's an old story, but it's going to help you to better understand how all this works and why everything was organized and coordinated in the manner that it was. Now, before I tell you this story, I want to be clear. This is just one version of several versions of mythology, okay? It is symbolic and metaphorical at best. It's not something you should think about as something based on true events. It's just mythology. Primarily a way to memorialize ancient gods, right? So, in Greek mythology, Artemis is the divine protector of wild places, animals, and the purity of the hunt. She is portrayed as a skilled archer who roams forests with her silver bow, moving freely through nature and rejecting marriage or romantic attachment in favor of independence. Sounds familiar in 2026, right? Anyway, her twin brother, Apollo, represents the opposite force: order, foresight, calculated intelligence. Now, even though they are twins, Artemis belongs to the night, the moon. Remember that. And instinct. While Apollo rules the sun, of course, prophecy, and rational control. Then we have Orion, who is a mortal, or in some traditions, semi-divine. He is a hunter of extraordinary size, strength, and skill. So great that he could track and kill any beast the earth produced. Sounds like a giant, right? Well, because of his unmatched talent, Orion eventually becomes associated with Artemis. And in some versions of the myth, he hunts alongside her as a companion in the wilderness, sharing in her domain of forests and beasts. Now, as Orion spends more time in Artemis's company, he becomes either a trusted hunting partner or, in some later retellings, someone whose presence Apollo begins to distrust. So Apollo, being so overprotective of his sister and associated with foresight, becomes uneasy about Orion's growing closeness to Artemis. The reasons vary depending on the version of the myth. Sometimes it's jealousy, sometimes it's concern for Artemis's independence, and sometimes a belief that Orion's pride or presence threatens the divine balance. Anyway, in the most well-known narrative reconstruction, Apollo devises a subtle test rather than confronting Orion directly. Well, it's not really a test, it's a trick. One day, while Orion is swimming far out in the sea or standing as a distant figure on the horizon, Apollo points him out to Artemis from far away, and Apollo challenges her skill with a quite cruel deception. He suggests that she could demonstrate her unmatched archery skills by striking a distant object in the water, appearing as nothing more than a dark shape against the waves. Artemis, confident in her precision and unaware of the trick, takes aim with her bow. As the goddess of the hunt, she never misses her target, and her arrow flies across the distance. And she hits her target. Only after the strike does she realize the truth. The target was not an animal or object at all. It was Orion. In that moment, Artemis is overcome with grief, recognizing that she has killed her own companion through deception. Now, in many versions of the myth, she cannot reverse the act, as even the gods are bound by fate once an arrow has been released. After Orion's death, the gods intervene to preserve his memory in the only way possible, So instead of allowing him to vanish entirely, he is placed among the stars as the constellation Orion, where he continues his eternal existence in the heavens. In this form, Orion becomes a permanent figure in the night sky, forever visible as a great hunter pursued across the stars. So folks, here's an article published by The Guardian. Not the best place to get articles from, but we'll just use this as an example. It's pretty long, so I'll summarize it for you. NASA's Artemis II mission, not spacecraft, but mission, launched on Wednesday, April Fool's Day, the day of trickery, at 6:35 p.m., 11:35 p.m. BST, from the Kennedy Space Center, marking the United States' first crewed mission toward the moon in more than 54 years, since Apollo 17 in 1972. The mission lifted off aboard the Space Launch System rocket carrying the Orion spacecraft, and was described as a flawless, fiery launch that drew massive public attention, with as many as 500,000 people gathering across Florida's Space Coast to witness the event after earlier technical delays in February and March. The 4 astronauts on board are Commander Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. The mission set several historic milestones. Hansen became the first non-American to travel toward the moon. Glover became the first person of color on a lunar mission. And Koch became the first woman to participate in a lunar mission. Now, isn't that the diverse crew, folks? Who picked this crew? Disney? Anyway, before launch, Wiseman emphasized the mission's unifying intent, saying, "We really are going for all, by all, and we want to take the whole world along with us," reflecting NASA's broader messaging that Artemis II is intended to represent humanity as a whole rather than a single nation. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman reinforced this vision after launch, stating, "We're going to get back in the business of launching rockets on a regular cadence, and we're going to bring the world along with us." He also referred to the mission as the beginning of a new era, describing it as the opening act. Now, he said it, folks, I didn't. Anyway, describing it as the opening act of NASA's plans to return humans to the moon and eventually reach Mars. The mission itself is a 10-day lunar flyby, meaning the crew will not land on the moon but instead travel farther into deep space than any humans have in decades, reaching roughly 253,000 miles from the Earth and passing within about 6,000 miles of the lunar surface on Flight Day 6, while testing Orion's systems for future missions. Now, I want to show you something else, folks. Let's take a closer look at the giant arrow they shot into the sky, the Orion craft. So you know they gotta throw the crescent moon, Artemis goddess symbol on there, right? What about on the crew patches? Look at that. Crescent moon symbolism, infinity symbolism. That A2 might actually be Greek symbols, lambda and pi, which could mean transitioning through a cycle, or changing or crossing over into a new cycle or phase. Who knows? Maybe none of this matters. They are taking a trip around the dark side of the moon, so we'll just have to wait and see how things go once they come back with the images. Anyway, that's going to be all for now, folks. Please click the thumbs up button and like this video. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. Everyone have a great day, and until next time, stay awake, stay aware, stay safe, and I'll talk to you all soon. Since the dawn of time, shadows have followed us. Questions without answers. Legends without end. Whispers speak of worlds hidden from sight. Truths buried in myth, carved in stone, and locked away in secret text and hidden vaults. Across every culture, every age, fragments remain. Clues to something vast, something forbidden, something waiting. This is Legends Mystery Masterclass. Here, we walk beyond the veil of ordinary understanding into ancient enigmas, forgotten corridors, and the secrets humanity was never meant to uncover. Prepare yourself. The mystery begins now.